All right, we got a rare mid-month video to make for you guys because the big news coming out over the last couple days is the details around the first-time buyer incentive program brought in by the federal government. So we're going to go over Chanani. The way we do things here in the office is often we will bounce ideas off each other, questions off each other. So we just thought we would do that live. So Chanani has put together 13 questions about this bill or legislation or incentive program, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to go over those together.
And just some housekeeping rules here is we know that the details are just emerging, so we're also learning with you. We're referring to the CBC article that came out by Pete Evans on June 17th, okay?
So a couple days ago, as she says, we're learning about this. I have not read the entire actual statement from CMHC about this. We're just going to share the details and specifically the ones that came out in that news article.
Yeah, okay. So some of the questions I have are, what are the positives of this program?
The two big positives I see is one, this is actually going to reduce the first-time buyer's monthly payment. So you will actually have more cash in your pocket month to month. That could be a very positive thing specifically for the economy if you can go spend that money on other things, keep the economy going. And the other big positive I have is this is actually different than the BC that brought in a similar type program a few years back and then immediately removed it. It is implemented by CMHC. So we're not layering on another level. Your application goes to CMHC and hopefully they can process everything at the same time and we don't have to go to another government body to then approve that portion of the
Yeah,
loan.
That's true. Before we had to apply to the government. So I see the numbers 10% and the numbers 5% tied to this program.
Yes.
How do I know what I qualify for?
Okay, so the 10% loan, so the incentive is basically a loan to you. 10% is the number that they're floating out there because that's the bigger and more attractive number. The bigger, more attractive number is for new builds, however. So 5% is the number that relates to resale properties, which of course is the majority of sales that happen.
So when can I take advantage of this new program?
They are saying September.
Okay.
September, it all rolls out, but the purchase date for the property is November 1 or later.
So completion
has
to be okay.
So you can maybe possibly start writing offers in September for this, but you won't actually be able to complete on the property till November 1st.
Okay, which is normal because 2 months out.
All right, next question. We got 13 of these questions. So next question.
Is the government offering me a 10% down payment?
No, the government's not. So, well, kind of. What they're doing is they're offering you 10% of the value of the purchase price, and there are all sorts of stipulations there, but you still have to come up with your 5% down payment. So it's not like the BC program, which was 2.5%, I bring to the table 2.5%, the government brings to the table. It's not that at all. You still need to bring your 5% or more down payment.
Okay, and they'll match that, okay. In our marketplace, what type of home does this program get me into?
In our marketplace, so it appears that about 480 mortgage is the maximum. Okay. There was one example that went up to about 565 as being the absolute maximum. So realistically, if I'm considering probably $500,000 in our marketplace right now, if that's a new purchase, it's definitely a 2-bed, 2-bath condo or less. And then in a resale at the 5%, you could be looking at getting into maybe a 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse, so you get the garage and all that sort of stuff. Much better for the first-time buyer, because again, you have to be a first-time buyer to get this. So much better for the first-time buyer if you can get into that townhouse, because there are stipulations about paying it back, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Do I qualify for a 5% or 10% greater purchase price?
No.
Did I already ask that question?
No. Your question. No, you do not. Okay, so this is the misconception. Now that they're giving me 5% more on my resale or 10% more, I am not buying a property for that much more money. It doesn't help my qualification. And in the article that we cited here, hopefully we'll get those in the comments here somewhere. In the article, there's actually a quote that says it may actually reduce your purchase price because you're actually now taking on more debt.
Yeah.
Right? So you are not actually looking at, say it's $500,000, that doesn't just up you to $550 as your purchase price. It's not the way it works.
What is the interest rate?
It's interest free.
Oh.
It is interest free. So the way it's supposed to come to you is, let's say it's 5%. Now, it's not incentiveless for the government. They will partake in the loss and they will partake in the gain. So their incentive will be if the property value increases and they have 10% in your property, when you go to sell, they get 10%.
So that's when I pay it back is when I sell?
Their interest, you pay it back. Okay, so that's, I think you had that on your list of questions. All right, so let's go to the next question.
So when do I have to pay it back?
There you go. So you have to pay it back when you sell the property. That's the easiest way, right? So let's say I buy for $500,000 because those are the numbers we're using. I have $25,000 from the government. I sell it for $600,000. I have to pay the government back $30,000 now.
Okay.
So you don't own that money. The government owns that portion of your sale. Does that? Okay. So sorry. That was one when you pay it back when you sell.
Yeah.
2, or 25 years later.
Oh.
So let's say, for instance, I still own that exact same property. Now, highly unlikely first-time buyer is going to own the same property 25 years later. But if you do own the property 25 years later, you have to pay it back at the end of 25 years. But, and I'm not sure if this is going to be in one of your questions, on the value at that time 25 years later.
So even if you don't sell it, it's going to be whatever that value is then?
Even if you don't sell it 25 years later. Likely your property is going to double not once but 2 times over that 25 years. That number could be very, very, very large, and we could even go over those. And there is a third way. Want to borrow more money against your property? You're paying it back.
Oh, okay.
So you cannot refi for more money without paying back that. So let's say 10 years down the road, you want to
do a reno.
$100,000, do a reno, do something like that. Well, now that just became $100,000 plus 10% of the value of your property.
Okay. Does the government then own part of my house?
Yep. The government literally owns 10% of your property.
Wow.
Now, whether or not this goes as a charge on title or how that happens, we're not sure yet because we haven't seen it. But they literally own, in new build, 10% of your property, 5% on a resale. So they are in the market.
So what if I sell for less than what I paid?
They say they will partake in that loss. So they say.
Interesting.
So what is unclear, and I could see this is getting really messy now, is let's say, for instance, we go down the road we've been going down, which is a declining market, and I have to sell for $50,000 less. I probably am going to need another appraisal, not just the sale price. Probably won't be good enough, but time will tell. Then do you need the okay from the government to sign off at that price? If you won't sign, or if you have to sign off for less, do they say, no, this is the amount you owe me, even if you end up selling for less? I would assume that that's likely the way it's going to go down.
But we don't know yet.
And we don't know yet. So it's going to get very, very sticky if you have to sell for less, because I highly, highly doubt, and this would be, I would look at this from a fraud point of view. If we could just immediately sell that for less, then all that government money just disappears, and that could be an issue. So I wouldn't suggest that the selling for less is going to be as easy as they've made it sound.
Okay. And the example in the article says that I could save up to $75,000 over the life of the mortgage.
Yes.
Is that true? Yeah.
The example in the article, is that you can save how many hundreds of dollars a month, $280 or something like that, and then $300, whatever, a year, and then up to $75,000 if you keep the property for 25 years. Absolutely true. Okay. You can save that off of your payment. But let's say, again, let's go back to, if I own the property for 25 years, likely we're doubling twice in value. So let's say I buy for $500,000. I save $75,000 in payments, but I've doubled now to
$1 million.
$1 million. Yeah. I may, in 25 years, this sounds crazy because we're thinking about it now, double again, $2 million. Now they own 10% of my property, or 5%. Am I paying them back $100,000 or $200,000? Could be. So they are taking benefit in the uptick in the market.
So what is the biggest negative of this program, you think?
This is a personal opinion. I have to say that the biggest negative in this could be that our Canadian government will effectively be buying into the market. They are also the people as an entity that dictate policy on the market. The stress test has specifically declined prices in our market. So here is a scenario of what would scare me. Let's say, for instance, the 100,000 people that they say are going to use this actually take advantage of it. Now they own let's call it 5%, because the 10% is probably not super realistic. Let's call it 5%. The Canadian government now owns 5% of the first-time home buyers of 100,000 first-time home buyers. Then they remove the stress test. Now house prices rise very, very quickly, likely, if they remove the stress test. Then, as the house prices rise, those first-time buyers are going, great, I've got all this equity, I can move on. They pay the government back on the lift, and then the government is reaping the benefits of those rewards and could then very likely put the stress test back in, and all of a sudden the new property that you bought that they have no stake in is worth less.
So the government is the one that's doing this program, but it's going through CMHC?
Well, the CMHC is a crown corporation.
Yeah, okay.
So it is the government.
Related.
It is a company run by the government. Now, CMHC is a great organization.
Yeah.
Their whole mandate is to get Canadians into housing. So I think they're run very, very well, and I'm very thankful that we have them. However, it's the fact that the policymakers are now investing, not yet, are potentially investing in the market. I could see that being a massive negative for the taxpayers and the citizens and the market, possibly a good a positive thing for the person actually using it. But are they going to use that money to then maybe invest in RSPs or pay down their mortgage even more? Or are they just going to use it for, I don't know, big screen TVs and RVs? And if that's the case, probably not a very good thing.
It will be very interesting to see how first-time home buyers even feel about that. Because why not just go to your parents and say, hey, you want to have a part in my place?
that could be an option. So
it'll be interesting.
I'm not going to say it's a positive or a negative. It is what it is. We'll see how it takes effect.
And how it will be used.
Personally, being a conservative, and I'm not talking Conservative Party of Canada, I'm talking a conservative, fiscally responsible person with my money. I don't like to involve the government, and specifically in the home ownership and the marketplace. And
but you know what? For some people that don't have any other option, like you can't borrow the money from family or whatever, it might work. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
I understand what you're saying. However, the reason I disagree with that is they're not giving you the 5% that you can't save up. You're doing the 5%. You're still qualifying for the same amount, and then they're just reducing your payment. So all they're doing is likely putting money in your pocket so you can spend it on other things and keep the economy going.
Oh no, that's not good.
Well, it just depends if you want to spend more money. I mean, I guess if it is very difficult to pay for those things that you need daily, yes, it's a very, very good thing. I think it would be a fantastic program if indeed you took that extra money and, say, for instance, put it in your RSPs and paid down your mortgage faster. It could be an amazing program of which you could create a lot of wealth. But there's a similar program, and that is the tax deferral program. We all know people that, I don't know if you know about this, but if you don't, there is a tax deferral program if you're disabled, those sort of things. If you have kids, you can actually wait and pay that off later. The trouble is most people don't take that money and apply it to actually the savings program, which would make it work. Most people just end up spending that money, and therefore when they go to sell their property, they end up with $10, $15, $20, $100,000 that they weren't expecting that they owe.
Yeah. Okay.
Make sense?
Hopefully it was helpful.
Hopefully this is helpful. If you got any questions, obviously reach out to us. I'm Steve Karish, and this is
Chandani Pooney.
And we work here at McDonald Realty with Chris Whitehead and Associates. Talk to you soon.
Bye for now.